But if we just remove these mundane and repetitive tasks and replace it with just disruptive and experimental tasks that are just linked to the curiosity, creativity and intellectualism, then it would result in a sort of anxiety within the workers. Hello ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to discuss about AI, and we will try to understand that there is a sort of a hope around the AI, and at the same time there is a sort of an anxiety whenever there is a discussion of AI. So if we see the corporates, they are very much hopeful about the prospect of AI, and for them it's some sort of a productivity tool that's going to enhance their productivity to the level they have never seen before. And when we think about the workers, they are quite anxious, they are curious, they don't know how AI is going to impact them. And most of the time they think that AI is going to replace them. So today we will try to understand that whether this narrative around or the anxiety around the AI have some sort of a legs, or it's just a sort of a perception in a bubble. So let's first try to understand the issue of, or the high hopes around the productivity. So when you think about the productivity, you would have seen that in past, when there was a sort of an industrial revolution coming in, there was also a similar narrative of productivity. And all the industrial process or industrial improvement was on the basis of that it's going to enhance the productivity, it's going to enhance the efficiency of the process. But now the real question is that if industrial revolution was able to solve the productivity issue, would AI would be able to enhance it? Because we have this series of marginal diminishing returns, which says that as you increase the productivity, as you adopt the means to increase the productivity, the result of the incremental result out of that productivity would be diminishing. So how come AI could result in a sort of infinite productivity? So there seems to be something missing. And at the same time, we need to understand that whenever we talk about the productivity is of the resources that are very scarce. So how can we achieve an infinite sort of a productivity on something that itself is scarce? So we need some sort of a framework which can establish or define that what are the levels of the productivity that's beneficial for the society. And maybe then we can argue that to sustain that productivity level, we would now adopt AI, because then AI would give us certain tools that would help us to ensure that overall productivity related initiative in the society are within the range that have been established by the government or by the framework, whatever it could be. So that's first thing. Now let's try to look into the second aspect from a worker's point of view. So even for the workers, we need to just look into the industrial revolution, because pre-industrial revolution everything mostly done by the human being itself using the manual tools. So there was no machines or a machine at the mass level. So most of the processes within the steps within the manufacturing is done by the human being. They might use certain tools within that specific process, but there was no single tool that's going to dominate the end-to-end manufacturing process. At each step of manufacturing, workers which are working on that product are very much linked to each step. So it's a sort of a single person looking into a manufacturing process end to end, and then the eventual product. So you can say that a single person, and you can designate that this single person is responsible whether the end good is of high quality or the low quality, and then you can have a grading of the workers. But post-industrial revolution, we have seen a sort of a concept of division of labor, and then those division of labors have been implemented on the machine lines, on the factory floors itself. So now what's happening, that there are a numerous amount of steps involved within the manufacture, and on each step there would be a individual or some of the workers are being assigned, and those workers, those are for instance assigned to a step 1 would not be responsible for step 2. They would keep assigned to a step 1 for whole of their life. Well, that result in a high level of productivity for the whole economies. It resulted in a sort of a high quality product. It resulted in the lower working hours because of the high productivity from a labor point of view, and then ultimately it also resulted in the cheaper goods because there was a mass production at a highly skilled level at a firms which are highly productive. So it benefits everyone. So initially, the workers were like, okay, they were doing the mundane, repeated tasks where no creativity, no curiosity, no intellectualism was involved. They were just doing a very specific task. They don't know the start and end of the process. They were not linked to the end product. All the rewards would be to the machine, because it's the machine that's producing the high quality product. And even if it's not producing, it's the machine issue. But at the same time, there was a lot of economic benefit coming out of it. Workers are getting paid well. They are having the low working hours. The lifestyle was improving. Now they can afford education, health, and a lot of other benefits. So it was a sort of a compromise that they have accepted. They have accepted to do the jobs that lack curiosity, that lack intellectualism, that lack creativity, for a benefit of good life standards. So that was a sort of a historical background of the repetitive nature of work. Now AI can easily replace all of those mundane and repetitive tasks. But what human beings would do now? Because they have never been curious, they have never been creative, they have never been intellectual. So for last 100 years or so, the way we have trained the workers, the professionals, we have trained them to do a certain type of a task with a perfection. That's how our education system was built. And now suddenly what we expect from the labor force is to be creative, to be curious. And then if a person, let's assume that if we are able to train a person just to do the tasks that are other than mundane and the repetitive one, then what they would be doing would be the tasks that could involve a huge amount of disruption, a huge amount of experiment. So that would result in a sort of an anxiety. So now the real question is that today we are at the extreme of mundane and repetitive tasks. How we can use AI to ensure that we can create a balance of the repetitive and mundane task and at the same time there is an element of curiosity, creativity, intellectualism, knowledge within a sort of a job. The job profile should have both of these aspects, because human beings needs mundane and repetitive tasks because that's create the reliability. And then at the same time there should be an element of curiosity, creativity, intellectualism, so that the human being have the urge to be involved into something end to end, because that gives the meaning to the work should be there. So what should be done? What's the solution? So the solution is that so the AI is real, it's going to be there. You can't just shut it down. But we need to work, or we need to understand that what should be the AI framework. And the AI framework that could be sustainable would be the one that have been decentralized, which means that the organization should not have a centralized AI policy, and they should not start making certain tasks to be handled by AI while others should be by the human being, because that centralization would eventually result in all the mundane tasks, all the repetitive tasks to be done by the AI, while all the things related to curiosity or experimentation would be handled by the human being, and that would result in a sort of an extreme anxiety. So what should be done is that the companies should invest in AI tools and then train their employees to use it and decentralize the decision to at the worker level to decide which task he or she want to be handled via AI and which task they want to handle by themselves. So that's how the future organization should evolve. And with a sort of a caveat that within an overall society, we need a sort of a productivity targets that are being calculated by some framework or directly by the government. With the AI, we might not be able to calculate the diminishing marginal utility on the firm level. It needs to be calculated on the overall country level or overall society level. It could be on the overall global level at some day, because it would depend on the AI tools, the availability of AI tools. If the AI tools are available, the availability of the tools are global, then the society needs to be global, because everyone would have the same tools that they would use to enhance their productivity. So that's what we were trying to explain in this podcast. We hope that you enjoy it. Please let us know about your feedback, about your concerns, or your hopefulness about the AI. Thank you so much.